Down the Biscayne. Yikes. 5 on the floor, ride for my dogs. Where here's the thing, you can check the score. Hustle hard, couple scars, wearing bubble frauds. Just like Butler said, you in trouble, y'all. Kept the floor playing, got it all banned. Y'all seen the block, stop with one hand. And Pat, we trust, it's power, have the guts. We're here to bring the heat, y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to 5 on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, and Alex Toledo, plus others from the 5 Reasons Sports Network.
Welcome back to the latest episode of 5 on the Floor. This is the post-game edition. I am your host, Greg Sylvander. Today's floor plan with me, we have Matt Hanifan. You can follow him on Twitter. I'll let him give his handle later on. You also have Eternal, who you can always find on Playback, and you can find him on Twitter as well. He'll shout out his handle later on as well. We are going to dissect the Miami Heat's 132-124 preseason victory over the Memphis Grizzlies at home. There were definitely some performances that we think are worthy to talk about. We will give you our major takeaways, and then we're going to move on to the next game because we realize that the preseason, we shouldn't take a ton from it, right? But we are going to dissect what we saw tonight. Before we dive into any of that, though, I want to tell you about a great sponsor here at the 5 Reasons Sports Network, and that's Aggressive Insurance. They are the official post-game sponsor. Every post-game podcast of 5 on the Floor for this entire season is sponsored by Aggressive Insurance, the insurance broker agency that's been servicing South Florida for over 15 years, offering auto, homeowners, condo, life insurance, retirement programs, free notary service to all clients, representing the leading insurance carriers in South Florida. So if you have a bad driving record, no problem. No driver is refused. Free phone quotes. So you got to hit them up, but you could try at the website first. This is the quickest way. InsuranceByLynette.com. That's with 2 N's and 2 T's in Lynette. Again, InsuranceByLynette.com. Aggressive Insurance. And you know what? We're going to be starting segments here on the show soon when we get our imaging done. And one of those is going to be our aggressive plays of the night. And this is going to lean into where I want to start today's show. And that is, there was a sequence early in the game where Haywood Highsmith found Bam Adebayo for 2 quick buckets, and Bam also had another bucket mixed in there, and he scored 3 straight, and he had it going, and he took 20 field goal attempts. And for me, Bam Adebayo is the aggressive player of tonight. I loved what I saw from him. 12 of 20 from the field, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, 26 points in only 25 minutes. He looks in midseason form. He looks aggressive in trying to get his shot. I think there were even moments where Heat fans probably wished that he would go and try to dunk it even more often, but the shots getting up was really good. Matt, I'll start with you. It's no longer your maiden voyage, so this is probably the last time that you're going to get the assist right up front. We'll let Eternal go bat first next time, but Bam Adebayo, man, he looked great tonight. 4 blocks. What else can we say? What did you see?
I mean, obviously, with the aggressiveness, as you mentioned, he wasn't really thinking that much. And then defensively, it looked like he was taking the Jaren Jackson Jr. matchup very personal to some extent. But Bam just doing it on both ends. I mean, you mentioned the 4 blocks. And it wasn't even just that, he's staying in front of obviously it's Bam doing what Bam does. He's staying in front of everyone. He's contesting the right shots. His motor's just insane when it comes to him moving around the floor. His box outs were good. He had that one where he wasn't even around the rim, but he was on the receiving end of a K-Love hit ahead pass, which is something that we haven't seen very often. And so he was just everywhere on the floor in that aspect. But then just offensively in the half court, you do want to see him get to the rim more often. You do want to see him try to create those advantages and try to get to the line. But his jump shot was flowing, and when he's not thinking about it, when he's just going on a 1 count, he's incredibly effective. So I think that's really just the takeaway that I saw from him tonight. But it was on both ends of the floor. It wasn't on just one, as you mentioned.
And it's a great point. I think he is taking that Jaren Jackson Jr. matchup. seriously and personally, because there is now, kind of this buzz that that's the better defender. And I think that he'll be out to prove that, and that'll be fun to watch going forward. I'm not going to make too much of it. There's no beef there. Come on, folks. But it's just more about competitive stuff there. Liked what I saw from K-Love. Eternal. I want to talk to you specifically, and I want to hear your comments on Bam as well, but I'm shifting gears a little bit so we get through everybody. We're doing a pretty abbreviated version of 5 on the Floor tonight, folks, just because we're going to have 2 off days before the next game, so we're going to get a lot of time to dissect the rest of this. But Jamal Cain, Eternal, was like, he's 6 of 9, 7 rebounds, 14 points, another really good game from him. So interested. Obviously, your Bam thoughts are welcome, but also Jamal Cain as we pivot to the next guy. He showed up.
Yeah, the interesting thing about Jamal Cain is he's not a guy that you have to scheme for offensively. So it's not like you have to, scheme up any kind of like off the pick and pop, off the pick and roll or anything like that. He's just a hustle guy. Wherever I get in, I'm a fit in. And you see it every time he's on the court. You saw it last preseason. You saw it during the games, during the season last year. We saw a little bit of it in summer league, and you've seen it these past two games. Like his impact on the court is just so it's 94 feet, and it's crazy. I think Miami is so very fortunate to have 3 Jimmy disciples, as I was saying, doing playback with Matt and you. Jimmy and Bam took him under their wing last season. I'm sorry, and you can just kind of tell like why he's a very special role player.
Agree. I think he could be in line for that standard deal. Haywood Highsmith was another guy that I think he had his moments. I mentioned him at the top when he found Bam those couple of times. I love that he's looking for that. Kyle Lowry, shout out to you. I know I've been called the biggest hater alive, and sorry that it's portrayed that way. 9 assists, 3 turnovers. That is money in the bank for this team. I think that that's the perfect role for Kyle Lowry. So there were so many good things that came from this because the team was as efficient as they were. And obviously they shot the ball really well. The only thing that kind of jumped out, Matt, was the turnovers. Do you think that is something we should be? I mean, Tyler had 4. He's going to have turnovers when he's trying to do as much as he's doing out there. I'm looking here. Duncan had 2. And then it's kind of spread out otherwise. What do you make of the turnovers early? Do you think that that's just them kind of figuring out, and the fact that it's clunky because the lineups aren't really going to be the lineups that they'd play later on? What do you make of the turnovers in this particular game?
I mean, I'm not looking too much into it. Like you mentioned, like some of the lineups, some of them were weird. With so many guys who were inactive, there were like 6, 7 guys who weren't playing, who most of them would be in the regular rotation on most nights. And so like, I'm not making too much of the turnovers. Like again, Tyler with the 4 turnovers. I mean, he had so many on ball reps to where like the 4 turnovers, if you contextualize that, it's not a significant amount. Like Kyle Lowry had the 3 turnovers. But he was also, as you mentioned, the 9 assists. He was also kind of being Miami's table setter, which is kind of his role that he has on this team. So I'm not making too much. I mean, Miami finished with 13 turnovers as a team. They also finished with 30 assists. So like that's a 2-to-1 assist to turnover ratio, just a little bit over that. But so I'm not making too much of it right now. I don't think that was Miami's biggest issue tonight. I think probably the defense was, but again, like just some of the lineups that Spo was running out there, depending on who was creating and who wasn't creating or whatever the case was. I mean, there were just lineups where like Tyler was the only creator. And then there was lineups late in the game where like Justin Champagnie and Jamal Cain were their primary creators. And so it's like, what can you actually make of those kind of combinations that Spo's throwing out there? So I'm not making too much of a fuss over it, if I'm being completely honest.
Agree. And honestly, I mean, as I look at it again, it was probably a ridiculous question because 13 turnovers is actually not many when you look at it in the grand scheme of things. But that was just something that jumped out as I am perusing the box score, trying to not be a box score watcher as we recap this show. Thomas Bryant had a good game. You mentioned some of these other guys, and I want Eternal's perspective here before we go to break. And then we're going to wrap up with kind of final thoughts and somebody we haven't talked about intentionally. what did you think of these end of the bench guys that are kind of playing for these last slots? You know the names. I'm not going to rattle them all off, but Eternal, what was your thoughts on guys 8 through 12 tonight?
Are we including Jamal Cain in it or no?
No.
Okay. I think it's really, really interesting. I think Cole Swider was always going to be like, a potential project. No one is like, oh, Cole Swider scored 17 points in the fourth quarter. We're depending on him to give us like really impactful minutes during the season. It was just like, oh, okay, so you see that type of potential. Let's build that. I think Cole is one of those guys. It's just been hard, Greg, because you haven't really seen RJ Hampton at all. So they cut Drew Peterson, and who was the other person that they cut?
Alondis Williams.
Alondis Williams. So I will say Champagne for the quick minutes in the fourth quarter looked really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
Really,
dark
really
horse to get a spot. I'm telling y'all.
Right. And for those that don't know, Champagne was on Sioux Falls last season, so he's been in their developmental system. So I don't know, Greg.
Orlando Robinson, you have been one. And again, check all of us out on playback. We promise we're not going to reference it too many times tonight. I listened to the comments, y'all. But you should check us out on playback on Playback TV, 5RSN. No, but all jokes aside, although everyone looks good when you look at the simpleton stats like plus minus etc. Orlando Robinson and Thomas Bryant, I think it's pretty clear Thomas Bryant's the backup center.
Yeah.
Is anyone on this show, so not just Eternal, because I think I know where he's going, so I'll take a more measured opinion from Matt too. Does anyone think Orlando Robinson's guaranteed contract, which I believe his deal becomes fully guaranteed if he's on the roster on opening night, is that in danger? ?
I thought it was like there's like in like December there's like increments to it. But I mean, I don't think that's, just to answer your question, I don't think that's in danger, no.
And I'll check on that just to make sure that I'm not crazy with what I'm coming. I thought it was the fully guarantee on opening night, but I could be wrong.
I think it's fully guaranteed. I think it becomes like, I don't remember the number, like 300,000 or like 500,000 or something like that. On opening night, but then it goes to like, I think there's like a December date and like a January date, but just this like nitpicky stuff aside, I don't think that's really in danger. I think he's shown enough over summer. Like just as a guy, like he's improved his touch. I think he at least has improved defensively in some respect. And when I don't think it's in like, he's shown enough improvement just as like, he might not be the most athletic guy on the floor, but like he's a guy that you can rely on. Like his rebounding I think has improved. His touch has improved. And I've talked about this before, but like he was a solid 3-point shooter when he was at Fresno State his last year there. He was around 36% on 3 attempts. That's just not something he showcased last year. But I think he's improved defensively. I think he showed that during the summer when they were blitzing him. I think he's improved offensively. I think he's kind of improved as a playmaker, surprisingly or not. Like I think as like a short roll playmaker, he's shown some flashes there. That's not something he's going to get a ton of reps in, but like I don't think he's in danger, especially with like the questions that we have about Thomas Bryant defensively. I think he's going to make the roster. I don't know if that's really not a concern in my mind.
Eternal, you disagree. You think Orlando Robinson is in danger of that $425K? I did go look it up. Thank you, Matt. You're keeping me honest here. He gets $425K guaranteed if he's on the roster opening night. If I read that correctly per Spotrac. Eternal, you think that they could potentially look in another direction, or was that just an overreaction on playback by you?
No, I mean, well, I've been saying this since they gave him the standard. I was surprised And Orlando, if you're listening to this, please know it's nothing personal. It's all objective. When I gave him the standard prior to Summer League, I was surprised that they didn't give it to Jamal Cain. I mean, based off of what we've seen from Jamal last year, and also, what we're seeing right now, it just immediately jumps out to you as soon as he gets on the court. And I think what we're seeing from Thomas Bryant has also been equally as impressive. They talked about in training camp how physical he was. You can see that on the court on both offense. And he may not be like Bam on defense or anything like that. He's definitely nowhere near that. But you can feel him in the paint, basically, right? So
on offense, at least.
Right. He's done a good job of rebounding too.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So, he's still not a shot blocker. I don't think either one of them are, a rim protector like that.
No.
But I will say this for anybody paying attention. Orlando Robinson didn't get minutes like that in the first preseason game when the whole roster was available. And then in the second preseason game, because, obviously Bam didn't come, he got more minutes, but it was kind of telling tonight that you didn't see Orlando Robinson until like 6 minutes left.
Thomas Bryant's clearly the backup center.
Yeah,
pencil him in to start the season. We don't know it's going to finish that way. Like, I maintain Kevin Love may be the starter at the 4 to start the season next to Bam. I think ultimately they're going to arrive at Haywood Highsmith there. I'm really high on that happening sometime this year, unless they make an upgrade that allows another front court player to play there.
Or if they go in a different direction.
Or Hawkes. I know that's what you want to do, but that's a whole other show.
Not Hawkes.
He just wants you to say
Jovic, I know. I was trying to avoid it. But we're not going to derail the program. We could do that on an off day, though. We're going to have a couple of them coming up. That's why we're trying to keep this one concise. Head over to Miami's first gaming lounge, Rock Esports Center, to eat, drink, and play all day. Host your next birthday party with them. Located at 15305 South Dixie Highway in Palmetto Bay. They have a 5,500 square foot state-of-the-art center equipped with the high-end power of industry titans, Corsair and Origin PC. Play all day. Passes available for just $25. Professional level gaming at the most affordable price in town. Use code 5RSN for $5 off your first purchase over $20, and join us for watch and gaming parties starting on October 27th. It's going to be super dope. Playing 2K, watching the Heat. You got to do it, but use the code 5RSN. That'll get you $5 off your first purchase over $20. Remember those watch parties starting October 27th. That's Rock Esports Center. Eat, drink, play all day. 15305 South Dixie Highway in Palmetto Bay. And the Rock Esports Center Gamer of the Night. People are probably like, damn, they went this whole show. I know one individual that probably gets real resentment that we haven't mentioned him yet. But here we go. Tyler mother bleeping Herro. 11 of 19. 6 assists. 30 points. 4 of 7 from 3. He is doing things, Matt, where he, I mentioned this briefly, but I think you'll be able to articulate it even better than I. He's not wasting movement. It's not as much of this east-west, I'm going to dance. He's getting to the cup. Even if he doesn't get all the way to the cup, he's getting there enough to where he can get a good angled shot at the basket. And with his skill set, he can make those. What did you make of Tyler's game? I think this guy is in line for a 26 point per game season. I am going on record as saying that. Wow. I said it earlier, and I was kind of saying it tongue in cheek. Now I'm going on record. I think he can have that kind of year. What did you see from Tyler tonight that you liked?
I mean, I love how much Tyler has improved as a live ball creator over the last 2, 3, 4 seasons. Like, from his rookie season to now, getting those on-ball reps as like a primary shot creator, something that like he's really improved at. And like in the pick and roll, his pacing, his vision, his preciseness and accuracy, his decision-making, with which pass that he wants to throw. And then as you're talking about his there's no wasted movement there. He when he's moving around, like he has that, he's shown more burst when he has the ball in his hands, and he's getting to his spots, and he's like being decisive, and he's being, as Spo likes to use, he's being intentional with his movements. And so like all of that, if you just put that together, it makes for a really good basketball player and a really good shot creator. And that's something that Tyler has shown at least through these first 3 preseason games, or at least, he only played in 2 of them, but like he's shown in this preseason sample that like that's something that he's continuing to perfect over time. And it's only going to get better as someone who's 23 and who is getting stronger. And I think that's just something that's really benefited him over time.
Stronger. I'm glad you mentioned it. You could see it. And it doesn't mean that he's like swole to the point that you're like, all of a sudden he looks like Bam or Alonzo Mourning or nothing like that. But like you can see that he's been working on that, the broader shoulders, the not getting pushed off his spots as easy. Matt, before I give the ball to Eternal to take us home, final thoughts on tonight, just anything maybe we didn't cover. We've been blitzing topics quickly. Anything just, that you wanted to sneak in here before we close?
There is like several different rotation players, some of them who didn't play in this game tonight, but like there's just several rotation guys that you can like viably see as like a 9th or 10th guy on this team. Like Miami has a good problem in terms of like, all right, who's going to crack the rotation as like an 8th or 9th guy? Like it's going to get a little weird with certain guys who don't play on certain nights who you think should play. And so that's all I'm with, like Jamal Cain, for example. There's nights where he might not play. He's probably on the outside looking in anyways, but he's still a guy who you would consider for that spot. Same with Jaime Jaquez, same with Nikola Jovic, both the guys who didn't play tonight. Orlando Robinson, who didn't play until there was 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter. There might be some nights where like Duncan may not get as many minutes as you think, or there might be some nights where like Haywood Highsmith may not get as many minutes as you think. Although I am with you, Greg, on how high I am on what Haywood can provide as like a 2-way 3-and-D player, just the impact that he creates. But it's going to get weird, and I don't really know the direction that Spo's going to go in. But like it's going to get weird on certain nights, and I think Spo's going to experiment with that over the first month or so. And of course, injuries will come into play at some point. And so that'll kind of iron itself out, but it's going to get weird. That's just kind of like my point.
Yeah. And I think it's a great point because you have so many guys. We've said this team is deeper with functional depth at certain positions and blah, blah, blah. There's been all these taglines and sound bites floating around with new words for what this all means. But for the most part, you got a lot of guys competing for the same minutes. And I think that could be a good thing. Eternal, Tyler, the creator, Tyler, the scorer, Tyler, the more efficient player. All of these things are looking good for him. Your Tyler Herro thoughts to close us out, and also any of your final thoughts. Before we get into them final thoughts, I do want to thank our sponsors one more time. I'll shout them out at the end. Make sure you're checking us out on Playback. We also are doing some really cool stuff with Playbook Sports, where we are on X, Twitter, Spaces as well. So check them out there. But Eternal, Tyler Herro, your final thoughts.
Yes. I am very impressed with Tyler tonight. I think this is the most impressed I've been with Tyler in a very long while. I think he played a very poised game. It was very efficient. He scored 30 points on 11-19 shooting. He was 4 of 7 from 3 with 6 assists and 4 turnovers. Some of the turnovers I wasn't really excited about, but you could tell that there was some improvement with some of his playmaking and just being able to get to his spots a little bit better, right? Like you talked about earlier, Greg, more north to south, instead of east to west, So if you're seeing more of that, that means there's more intention. And one of the things that we talked about after the first preseason game was I want to see a little bit more intention because he had 22 points on 22 shots. So to me, this was a really, really big improvement tonight. So shout out to Tyler and all the hard work that he's been putting in. definitely looking forward to see how much of that we see this season. As far as any final thoughts, I agree with Matt. Miami is in a great position, and we talked about this on a pod, on Twitter, on Playback, all of that. That this team is deeper than it was last year. Like, you can just tell that they're deeper than they were last year, and I think that would have been the case even if Vic and Yurt were healthy. I think this team is just deeper. And then when Matt said it, it made me think about it. They have 4 3-and-D guys: Josh Richardson, Caleb, Haywood, and Jamal. Like, that's crazy. So you could literally put them on the floor with Jimmy and have Jimmy run a playmaker, and their 3-point shots have to be respected, but you can go and lock down the other team. And so when you think about like just closing lineups at the end of games, if you need like lockdown defense, man, like Miami has, they got some options this season. And obviously, with Spo being a madman, there's just so many ways that he can play with the lineup. So I guess my final thoughts would be like, we're seeing during these preseason games just how deep they are, which is crazy because they don't even have Jaime or Nico or some other guys available. So you're not even seeing a full roster. So I think it's a lot to be excited about as Heat fans, as people that cover the team. Obviously they didn't get the deal that they wanted. But I will say to all of you that are listening, just buckle up and prepare for the ride, because it won't be the same as last season.
Agree. I think that there's the vibes around this team, the focus around this team, the chip on the shoulder of this team are all good things. And I think that we continue to see little bits of that, but we're not going to make too much of preseason other than the guys that we expected to look good are looking good. And that, for the most part, is pretty damn encouraging. So we'll start there. We're going to end there. We'll unpack this matchup and what it meant, even though we don't know how much it meant anything for the next 2 days before the Heat buckle up again. I think that their next game is not until Wednesday, is it? Yeah, Wednesday the 18th. They play at home against Brooklyn. So it will be a moment before we see them again. So you'll hear a lot of our voices in between time. Thank you to Eternal. Thank you to Matt for joining me on the program. Shout out to Aggressive Insurance. Shout out to Rock Esports Gaming. Check us out on all our platforms. Have a good night.
Thank you for listening to the Five on the Floor on the Five Regional Sports Network.